Hi friends, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to draw 5 different spring floral doodles. First we're going to learn how to draw a cherry blossom, and for this we're going to start with an oval as a guide for our flower. As you can see here, I grabbed a washi tape, I bended it a little bit to create the form of an oval to trace. Then we're going to do another small oval to create the center of our flower, and then we're going to add these short lines with dots or small circles at the top, and this is to mimic the stems. And of course I'm going to be adding links to everything that I'm using here in the video in the description down below. The next step that we're going to do for our cherry blossom is to add 5 rounded petals with tiny notches at the tips, just like I'm doing here in the video. And since we are sketching, make sure you keep in mind to keep your traces light, just because we're going to be erasing a lot, and you can change the shape of your petals as much as you like until you are satisfied. Now I'm adding these wavy lines to the petals to show that they are a little bit bent. Then we're going to add the stem and a leaf to accompany this cherry blossom. Now we're going to go ahead and outline everything. I'm using a monoline studio pen. For the outline, I'm using a 05, and for the smaller details, I'm going to be using a 01. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing the shading inside the petals and the leaves is to make sure to keep your traces quick, kind of like you're flicking the pen. And then the last thing is to color it. Next, we're going to learn how to draw a daffodil. Now, my pronunciation might not be the best, but I do know how to pronounce them in Spanish, which is narciso. The cherry blossom is flor de cerezo. So here you're going to be learning doodling and a little bit of Spanish as well. And to make it easier for you for this flower, I always recommend that you start with a base, which is a circle, and we're using again our trusty washi tape, but you can use any round object to create it, or even free-handed. Now for the center of the flower, we're going to draw an oval. Make sure it's not completely centered in the bigger circle that you made, but it's a little bit off to the side. And we're going to create a small trumpet shape with a frilly edge. Then we're going to proceed to draw the petals, and then we're going to draw the wavy lines in some of the petals to create some depth and make them look like they're a little bit bent. We're going to draw 6 pointed petals around the trumpet. We're going to finish the flower with the stem and a couple of leaves. These leaves are different than the ones that we did for the cherry blossom. These are going to be tall, ribbon-like leaves, as you can see here. And then you magically outline everything, and we're going to proceed with the shading. For the shading, make sure you use a smaller tip pen if you can. If not, just make sure that you do light strokes and don't make them completely straight. Make sure that you bend the strokes that you do to accommodate the shape of the petals, because this is going to help them look more like they're bent, and it's going to give the flower more dimension and depth. A couple of fun facts: the daffodils are the birth flower of March, and they symbolize hope, rebirth, and new beginnings. I didn't mention for the cherry blossom, but they are the flower of April, and the cherry blossoms symbolize renewal and the fleeting nature of beauty. In Japan, they're called sakura, and they even have their own festival. I really love learning little things about the flowers, and I hope you like these fun facts as we're drawing them. And this is an idea for you to color the daffodil, and this is the final result. Moving on, we're going to learn how to draw a daisy. Since the center is a little bit smaller, I just freehanded it, but you can also use a bigger circle and then a smaller circle inside that you can use as a guide. After you are satisfied with the center, make sure that the edges of the small circle are rugged, and then we're gonna start drawing our petals. For the petals, make sure they are long oval petals, and we're gonna paste them all around our center. Make sure you leave some space because we're going to overlap some of the petals, just as you see here, and some of them you're just gonna do like C shapes or U shapes around the petals, just to show like some of them are behind them. Then we're gonna follow with the stem and 2 leaves. Daisies are another birth flower for April. A fun fact is that daisies close at night and then open with the sun, kind of like little sunflowers. And they also symbolize innocence and purity. And once you are satisfied with the sketch, of course, it's time to do the outline and the shading. For the center of the daisy, you can either do dots or like rugged lines inside. Now, the typical look of the daisy is a yellow center with a white petals. I went ahead and used this super light blue around the petals just to give it a little bit more depth and dimension. And I went with a dark brownish orange in the bottom part of the center of the daisy. So now this is the final result, and I hope this gives you an idea of how to color your daisy. And I almost forgot, but daisy in Spanish is pronounced margarita. Yeah, it's kind of like the drink margarita, but you say margarita. Okay, I hope you get the idea. Moving on, we're gonna learn how to draw a magnolia, and for this I decided to get my angle and circle maker. Now this little gadget is perfect for you to have handy because with this one you can do all sorts of different circles for your drawings. So I think this is a tool to have handy to help you with your doodling. Once you have the bigger circle, you're going to draw kind of like a teardrop inside that circle. I'm gonna draw a bunch of pointy ovals, one next to each other, following the shape of the teardrop. Now the petals of the magnolia, I think they are a little bit more intricate, so be sure to follow the shapes that I'm doing here. I'm also adding a lot of curvy lines at the edges because the magnolia flowers usually have the petals more bent towards the center. A couple of fun facts about the magnolia is that magnolia has the same name in English and Spanish, and the difference is probably going to be in the way that you pronounce it. I'm probably pronouncing it more towards like the Spanish version, but it is the same word, so I can't help myself. Also, the magnolias have been around since dinosaurs roamed. How cool is that? They're often seen as symbols of dignity and strength. Here in the United States, southern US states love magnolias, so much so that Louisiana and Mississippi made them official state flowers. I think it would be cool to create a series where we doodle all the official state flowers. If this is something that you would like, please comment below and let me know. Now, as far as coloring ideas for magnolias, I color the center yellow and a little bit of green at the top, and they look beautiful in pink, cream, or light purple. So I decided to go with sort of like light purplish cream vibe for this one, but you can color it however you like. Last but not least, in this spring flowers doodle tutorial, we're going to learn how to draw a primed rose. Now go back to the round object of your choosing to trace a circle, and then we're going to do a small circle in the center and then a bunch of little smaller circles inside it. We're going to follow with 5 heart-like petals evenly spaced. Now I like to start with a petal on either side. This is going to help us kind of like space out the petals better. And don't worry, you can always overlap them just like I'm doing here. We're going to do the stem and rough leaves. Prime rose in Spanish is called primula, and prime roses symbolize young love and the start of something new. How sweet is this? I'm going to have a part 2 video tutorial with even more spring flower doodles for you to learn how to draw. If you haven't noticed, I'm obsessed with flowers because they're more than pretty doodles. They're full of meaning, history, and charm, and you can draw them pretty much everywhere. So if you would like me to do another series like the birth month flowers, or like I mentioned before, the official state flowers for here in the United States, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna add links to everything in the description so you can have access to the doodle guides that I'm using here in the video, as well as all the tools that I used. Be in the lookout for part 2 of the spring flowers video tutorials, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments.